The Florida Gators are once again going to have a red hot summer on the trail.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast and on YouTube. Happy Friday. I'm Brandon Olsen. Find me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with New York Giants on SI. This episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by the Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Turn any TV into your Xbox with no console needed. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to learn more. And the Florida Gators right now have a lot of momentum on the trail. Okay. They have like on three prediction wise, they have 3-star offensive tackle Javari Lucas. They have 3-star defensive lineman Tyson Bacon. They have 4-star edge Jake Cruel. They have 4-star corner Chauncey Kennan, 4-star defensive lineman Vodney Cleveland, 4-star corner CJ Hester, 3-star offensive lineman Geneva Carr, 3-star wide receiver Brian Williams, 4-star linebacker Malik Morris, 4-star defensive lineman Valdon Sone, and 3-star tight end Kekua Aumua. All those guys right now have predictions put in for them on 3 as Florida trending, or Florida is the number one team on those. And again, that's just the on 3 prediction. That's not even other people that they might actually be trending for. And also there is, of course, the possibility that there are players right now on that list that Florida is leading for and will not land. But also, again, they will probably be offset by Florida landing guys that they're not presently leading for. Like a guy that I think Florida will ultimately wind up with is defensive lineman Jarayla McCoy. And Florida's not number one on his prediction there, right? So I think that looking at that for me is just one of those things where, again, on 3 doesn't have Florida leading, but I think Florida will wind up with him. And there's players that on 3 does have Florida leading and that Florida will not wind up with. And it's also important to acknowledge that given recent decommitments over the past few, let's say months, really, right? I mean, you can even just talk about the past few weeks, but Florida has one commit in their 2026 class right now. It's quarterback Will Griffin, which for any position to have a commit, or if there's only one position where you have a commit, you hope it's a corner or a quarterback. You hope it's a quarterback because then everybody else wants to play for that. Like everybody is capable of being built through that. You can sell, hey, receivers, like look at what my quarterback did. Look at what Will Griffin did. That's what he does. Don't you want to come play for that? It's easier to sell quarterback than anything else. If you have a receiver, you could sell that to a QB or even other receivers and go, hey, like this guy can't double both of you. One of you guys are going to be in single coverage. Stuff like that, but it's easiest to sell a quarterback. Running backs, it's who you're going to play next to. Offensive line, it's who you get to pass protect for. And also one thing that we've talked about so many times is that quarterback is the most valuable position in football. It's why they're paid the most. It's why they're drafted the highest. It's why they get the most attention. It's why they get the most press. It's why they get the most everything, because they're the most important position in football. So having a good quarterback in your commit, or in your recruiting class, which I do think Will Griffin is a very good recruit. I think he's got a lot of room to grow. We'll talk about that in a second. But I do think that he's gotten enough tools and enough traits and enough just facts about him where you could say, hey, this is a guy we can win with. Like this is the guy that can win us games. And so when you have that quarterback that can sell, hey, we can win games with him, that's when other things fall into place. That's when other positions tend to fall in line when they buy in on that QB. So given the recent decommitments, which I mean, the Isaiah Williams one, let's just say what it is. It wasn't unexpected. Um, Fifth commitment before start of senior year is, I think, pretty indicative of not if he's going to be a success or anything. I'm not saying that, um, but I do think that having so many commitments and considering he committed months ago, that being the fourth commitment kind of made you go, all right, well, we'll see if it sticks. And even this one, I'm not sure if the Ole Miss commitment will stick. But there's that decommitment that happens. That's the most recent of the decommitments or of the decommits. But Florida right now, like let's say you add just Will Griffin, you have just Will Griffin. Let's say you add the players that On3 has predictions for. So again, that's Javari Lucas, Tyson Bacon, Jake Cruel, Chauncey Kennan, Vodney Cleveland, CJ Hester, Geneva Carr, Brian Williams, Malik Morris, Valvin Soni, and Kekua Omua. Let's say all those players get added. Let's say you add defensive lineman Jaraylin McCoy. Like I said, again, I realize that not all of these people are going to be Florida Gators, right? Not all these kids are going to commit to the Gators. And if they do, not all these kids are going to sign with the Gators. And if that happens, I think that'd be the first time that that's ever happened where you had that, or in this era, where you've had that many commits in May and all of them stick, all of them sign. Just because, odds are you're going to lose one, right? Like at least one. But let's say you add that class to Will Griffin, and that would give the Florida Gators a recruiting score of 217.6. And 217.6 at this point in the recruiting cycle, which again is still, I know it's May, so we're really 7 months away, basically, because now it's early December. So 7 months away from early signing day. And so a lot of people feel like, oh, that's really close up. It's really not. You got plenty of time for things to change there. But that 217.6 would put Florida behind USC, who is first in the country with 2026 class right now, behind Notre Dame, who is second in the country right now in 2026, behind Ohio State, who's third, behind Penn State, who's fourth, and ahead of Clemson. That would put Florida fifth. Clemson is currently fifth with 216.93, but if Florida gets to 217.6, that puts you ahead of Clemson, gives you a top 5 class. And again, even if you had a top 5 class right now, let's say all these kids commit tomorrow, even if you had a top 5 class right now, not indicative of where you're going to end up when it comes time for actual early signing day. We are about to talk about the classes and positions that Florida needs, which we're going to go through every position and what you need, because I am of the belief that you take at least one player at every position, but we'll talk about that in a minute on Locked On Gators. Did you know your Fire TV stick is also an Xbox? You can turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices with no console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe, or sign in to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to go. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to, look, I like the NHL games. I like the FC games. I'm just saying they're fun games. Fun, and hockey, always fun to play during the playoffs. Call of Duty Black Ops 6, Avowed, everything you can do. And you can do that as easily as you stream your favorite shows. It's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller are required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K, 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max, 1st and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube, 3rd Gen. Thanks for Locked On Gators, your first listen of the day, every day. We are available daily and free, every single podcast and on YouTube. And right now, we're going to talk about the offensive needs for the Florida Gators in the 2026 class that are still remaining. Starting, of course, with quarterback. Like I mentioned, Will Griffin is there. I don't necessarily think that he's an elite quarterback recruit, but I do think he's a quarterback that could be a genuine quality QB1 in the SEC as well. And so what I mean by elite is I don't view him as a DJ Lagway. I don't view him as that, but I do view him as a guy that could be a high quality starter in the SEC. And I do think that look at his physical tools, and there's enough to sell receivers, tight ends, offensive line. Like there's enough to sell all of that because of what Will Griffin brings physically and what he can continue to bring with further development. So I do think he's a guy that maybe if there's an elite quarterback that's available and interested, maybe you go and take that look there. But I don't think he's someone that you need to look for another person if he's your only QB ticket. Or I prefer you take two QBs just for depth purposes. But even if he's the only one, I think either way he'll be clearly the guy. But even if he's the only one, like I think he's enough to sell to other people. Running backs, I think you need to add one, like at least one, maybe two for the 2026 class. Just because you've got Jacoby Jackson potentially going to be an NFL draft prospect next year, so he won't be back for 2026. You'll have Jaden back, but I would assume that you lose at least one guy to the transfer portal at some point, just because this is a running back room that right now is really deep, yes, but it's also pretty young. So Jacoby Jackson's going to be gone. Jaden Baugh still has his sophomore eligibility, as does Trayon Webb. Still is a sophomore now, and Trayon Webb is a redshirt eligible player. So there's that. You're going to have KD Daniels is redshirt after last season. Then this year, you brought in Duke Clark, you brought in Byron Lewis, and you brought in Chad Gasper, who I think most of us expect a redshirt. He tore his ACL during the season, so not going to be available for that. But now you've got a lot of guys with multiple years of eligibility remaining. And while that's great to have, where you could say, hey, he could rotate in on the back end and get some snaps, there's also people who are going to say, well, the guy in front of me has multiple years of eligibility as well. So it's not like I'm going to take over the starting job next year or the year after. If the guy in front of me has 3 years of eligibility and I have 3 years of eligibility, that's a conflict there. So at some point, there's going to be someone from this running back room that enters the transfer portal. And so I think that means that you need to bring in one, maybe two high school running backs in the 2026 class. It's not about, and a lot of this isn't about this room's not good enough or there's not enough starting talent there. A lot of this is just depth wise, because I'm not talking about, oh, hey, go get these high school players and make them immediate starters. I generally hate that concept of saying, hey, we're going to rely on the high school freshmen who we know nothing about, really. So I hate that. So most of what I'm talking about here is just long-term depth, what you need. And it's also ignoring many of the guys that are running out of eligibility or should be declaring for the NFL draft after this season. Receiver, the usual. Firmly believe that you should bring in 3 receivers every year, maybe 4, but usually 3 receivers. Bit of speed. I do think for the 2026 class, you might need to prioritize X receivers, because right now at the X, you've got J. Michael Sturdivant, Khalil Jackson, Dallas Wilson, and Moise Tonkara. J. Michael Sturdivant and Khalil Jackson gone. You need to add people at the X spot so that you can actually have some sustained depth there. Tight end, another year to add 2, in my opinion. I think that you still need to look for another inline and a flex guy, and it's not a knock on anybody that they brought in. It's just you've got Hayden Hansen and Tony Livingston are entering NFL eligibility time. So you could lose one of them. And then depth-wise, you might lose a guy. Like maybe one of the guys comes in and he's like, yeah, nope, I'm way out of my weight class right now, and leaves. So I think that tight end, you need to go get 2. You do. You just, again, an inline guy and a flex guy. You've got a few walk-on players there, but I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I'm going to rely on walk-on players to do it. That's just not a thing I'm capable of doing there. Looking at the offensive line, as always, I want you to add at least 4. As always. And I think Florida especially will need to do that. I do think that offensive line might be a spot that they look at in the portal. I'm saying this way in advance, just because I feel like they have done that pretty consistently of looked into the portal for a guy, especially with a couple years of eligibility, except for Brandon Crenshaw-Dixon, who was a 1-year rental. But I do think that they spend a lot of time in the portal looking at guys with multiple years of eligibility, especially on the offensive line. So maybe they're not going for high school offensive linemen. That's fine. I'm not super particular about how that's broken up. But you do need bodies and talent to the room because there's going to be attrition on the offensive line. Jake Slaughter, Austin Barber go into the NFL. Like, they're both gone. Damian George, gone. Whether you like him, view him as a starter or backup, however you view him, he's going to be gone because he's going to be out of eligibility there. So Damian George is going to be gone. Also, in that upperclassman room on the offensive line, you're going to have Cam Waits is going to be someone who's leaving. Like, he's another person that is entering his senior year, redshirt senior year, sorry. And so you're going to be losing Cam Waits. And I think you can get another year of eligibility for Devin Manuel. But outside of that, you'll have Devin Manuel, Najee Harris, Caden Jones, Rod Kearney, Bryce Lovett, and then the people who were true freshmen or redshirt freshmen in will be true freshmen or redshirt freshmen in 2025, which is basically your 2024 and 2025 offensive line classes. That's a lot of youth that generally, I like to say, don't expect all of it to pan out. And I think offensive line is an especially difficult spot to develop because I think it's so technical that I think it's a very difficult spot to develop. And so when I look at all those positions, all those players, and all that youth, I say, hey, I'm not going to bank on that actually being developed. Add more players, add more bodies, add more talent, and constantly look to add to the room and have, 18 to 20 scholarship offensive linemen every year would be my goal. So Florida offensive line, going to have to hammer it away, which I will say of the names that they've got, whether you want to say it's the predictions or just traction with, I like quite a few of the players that they're talking about there. We are going to talk about the defense to wrap up today's show when we get back with Locked On Gators. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all of my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track, and that's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building your wealth. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. That's code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. And to wrap up today's show, we are talking about the defensive side of the ball and Florida's defensive needs for the 2026 class. And I'll say this, similar to offensive line, similar to receiver, similar to the other positions on the defensive front. I say that because I'm saying interior defensive line and edge are similar to those other spots. Always add talent, always try to add multiple players because a lot of people are going to play at those spots. So I think that looking at the interior defensive line, like, you're going to lose Caleb Banks, Brian Taylor, Jamari Lyons. Likely. Jamari Lyons will have 2 years of eligibility, but if he's taking the jump that so many people are talking about, then there's a decent chance he's going to be gone. So Caleb Banks, Brian Taylor gone, potentially Jamari Lyons gone. You have Mekhi Boyero back. You have Joseph Mbachu still there. You have Jeremiah McLeod, and you have Stephon Chivers. You need bodies in that room, and you need talent in that room. I do think that nose tackle, you're looking pretty good for a couple years. But even then, like when we're talking about 2026 class, they come in for the 2026 season. Mekhi Boyero will be draft eligible by then. Like, that's how insane this game planning is. Or roster building, whatever you want to call it, this roster management. That's how insane it is that we're talking about the 2026 class right now. We're talking about someone who just finished his freshman season, true freshman season. And we're saying, hey, when that class that we're talking about comes in, he's going to be draft eligible. That's why I'm talking about you need to add depth, you need to add this, because it's crazy how quickly things are going to pick up. And it's going to be fun, but it's crazy to talk about how quickly things are going to pick up there. So defensive line, and by the time 2026 class comes in, again, you're going to have Jamari Lyons will be out of eligibility. So even if he does come back, you're getting at most one more year with him. So Caleb Banks, Brian Taylor, Jamari Lyons will be likely gone. Again, Lyons is, if he has the year that many people are projecting him to have right now, need to add bodies, need to add talent. Nose tackle with Mekhi Boyro, Stephon Shivers. Pretty good. Maybe you don't need to prioritize nose tackle there. But Florida has generally shown a lot of interest in going, hey, we're going to add a nose tackle and a 3-tech or 2. Joseph Mbachu, I think that he's someone who you kind of just need to see how his body naturally develops with more football training because he played 1 year. He's got 1 year of football experience. And so I do think that he's someone that it's like, well, we don't know what he's really going to look like with football training and everything. He's someone that is very untapped physically. And so I think that one, maybe he's going to be a nose tackle. Maybe he's going to be a 3-tech. But either way, you're going to need to just then recruit the spot. He's not playing. Although it is possible also, he's someone that can play both, in which case you need another versatile piece or a guy that is stuck at a spot. Edge, stack talent. Tyreek Sapp, George Gums, going to be gone. Cameron James, Kofi Asari. When the 2026 class comes in, those guys are going to be entering probably their last year in college. Going to need to add to the room. You've got LJ McCray, Jalen Wiggins, Jaden Woods are the guys with 3+ years of eligibility left. Need to continue to add to that. Linebacker is an interesting one. I'll say that. I think they'll take 2 again. Like that seems to be what they always do. But linebacker is an interesting one because you can lose Pop Howard and Jaden Robinson after this year. However, you can also bring both of them back. This is, I think, the only position that we've talked about so far. There's still safety. This is the only position I think we've talked about so far that there's a real chance you can lose them, but also a real chance you could bring them both back. Like tight end, you could bring them both back. I think they both will be back for the 2026 season. I think Hayden's the only one with a legit chance of leaving. I think Tony just needs to put out more film. And so linebacker is one of the spots, and I guess safety, where you can really talk about, they genuinely could declare for the NFL draft, or they genuinely could come back. So linebacker is interesting. I still think, again, that they'll go for 2. But Pop Howard, Jaden Robinson, Aaron Childs, Mile Graham, and Ty Jackson, Miles Johnson. Like every year they've gone to bring in 2. And even sometimes they've recruited a 3rd, maybe, like a Darius Hayes a couple years back. Who, again, I know that everybody was like, yeah, I'm fine with him at linebacker. I thought he was strictly an edge. I didn't think he'd be an off-ball player at all. I still think if he goes to the edge, he can find success there. So linebacker, I would expect them to take 2. You had Isaiah Williams. There's a lot of traction with the Malik Morris, but it's just about will it actually pan out. Cornerback, Devin Moore, Michael Carraway Jr., both going to be out of eligibility. Dijon Johnson, Cormani McLean, both going to be NFL draft eligible. And then behind them, you've got Jameer Grimsley, Teddy Foster, Ben Hanks, Jabari Flowers, and Ernest Konenbani. You're going to need to add another 2 to 3, just because I do think that over the next 2 years, you can lose a lot. Because even if Dijon Johnson and Cormani McLean both come back for 2026, they're likely both going to be gone. So who knows what eligibility is going to be like, but they're likely both going to be gone. So I do think that adding more bodies to the room is important. And I'm very happy that Florida added the 3 freshman corners, just because I do think that, again, that's a room you got to add bodies to. Safety, Jordan Castell, Sharif Denson, Bryce Thornton, Stars, safety. And yeah, we're grouping them together because they keep bringing in safeties and moving them to star. So you've got those 3 are 2 years tops. Aaron Gates, we don't know what his injury is going to look like. And then you've got Josiah Davis is also at star. Lagonza Hayward's playing safety and star, and Hilton Stubbs is playing safety. So You've got decent youth there. But again, you've got a few guys that are max 2 more years here. Likely not even going to be that, but 2 guys or 3 guys that are max 2 more years here. Get ahead of the curve, add 2 safeties that you can bring in, which again, similar to linebacker, I feel like that's the thing they try to do a lot, and they try to rotate those players a lot. So I do think that you go, hey, we're going to add 2, call it a day there. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free. You have us in the podcast and on YouTube. We'll be back when we're back. For Locked On Gators, I'm Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with New York Giants on SI, and I'll see you all next time.